Hey everybody, welcome back to the Live Ultralight podcast powered by Outdoor Vitals. Today we had a very special guest, Mr. Shaun Durkee from Alpen Fuel on the podcast to talk about his creation, Alpen Fuel breakfast meals. Now, these have been some of my favorite meals ever since I first met him in February of 2021. I can honestly say that I don't think I've backpacked a single time without utilizing one of his meals since I first met him and got his product. It's been an amazing product. We go into the details of why I love it, why it's one of our best-selling meals inside the Live Ultralight membership. And I think you guys are going to really enjoy this podcast and just learn a little bit about what it takes and you know, his thought process behind the meals that he did create. Now, I do need to call out really quick and just say that if you are not familiar with the Live Ultralight membership, you need to be. It is the cheapest way to purchase backpacking food, period, right? You're going to be able to get your hands on the food at a 10% discount. Plus, we give rebates back when you're buying retail items, which would be food, through that Live Ultralight membership. So you literally can't buy meals at a cheaper price than joining the Live Ultralight membership. And the best part about joining that Live Ultralight membership is it's $10 a month and it instantly transfers into store credit. So you're not losing any money. As long as you are just going to order some backpacking meals this year, you are in the green. You're doing well with this program. So if you're not familiar with it, go check out the Live Ultralight membership. Again, very, very excited to have Shaun on the podcast. We had a phenomenal discussion talking about all things nutrition and what it really takes to fuel your body during long backpacking adventures. With that, we'll go ahead and roll this conversation. All right, Shaun, I'm super happy to have you on the podcast today. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me on. I know we just ran into each other down in Salt Lake and trying to recover from that and hit the ground running this week. So I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I'm sorry for you that you had to go back to the cold winter of Montana, but I guess you choose to live there regardless, huh?
I grew up here, so I don't know any better.
Yeah, I've been here and just we met it up at a show and man, it just sounded so cold and miserable to talk to people from Montana and Wyoming, especially like the last 2-3 weeks. It just got so dang cold up there. But
yeah, about a week ago, right before I left, I had to get my dog out for a walk. I was just going crazy inside, but I drove out to the river and walked him, and it was about 15 below with wind chill. So it was just nasty, but you got to get out sometimes. And now today it's 45 and sunny, so you never know what you'll get.
Right. Well, that's good. I just in my head picture it as just always ice cold up there. So 45, that's pretty manageable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm interested to hear what drove you to start an entire business making backpacking food. Specifically, at least right now, as far as I know, you're really focusing on these kind of more breakfast meals, granolas. You're getting massive amounts of calories in those. And, for that reason, it's been ever since we met and we started to sell your food. I don't know that I've had anything else for breakfast on trail in that's probably been 2+ years now. Never. That's been the staple for me. Just because there is so many dang calories. They're so light, calorie per ounce is so good. And then they're really tasty, right? But I'm curious what drove you to initially get started in even starting to formulate something for this niche.
Good question. And if we would have known how difficult maybe the food segment was, I don't know if we would have jumped into it right away, but we're kind of accidental entrepreneurs. So I have a engineering background. I went to Montana State, graduated in 2006, and then worked for the Boeing company in Seattle for 2 years, and then found my way back to Montana. I always wanted to come back. My family's here, and I love the hunting and fishing and backpacking opportunities. So I got married, had kids, and then I was working for a company called FLIR Systems, and they make laser rangefinders for the military. So I was helping as a manufacturing manager. Eventually, I worked my way up to that role, and then it was a really great position. But I got frustrated, I guess, with working in a corporate environment, and it was more of a tech world. So it's very competitive, very fast paced, extremely stressful. So when I was a manager there, I had about 20 people under me, and I was losing a lot of weight, just stressed out constantly, meeting quarterly deadlines, and just we shipped precision laser components. And so I was talking with my wife about starting maybe something that was something that I enjoyed a lot more, and we started Alpen Fuel January 1st of 2019. So at that time, it was a weekend and night side gig, and we sold backpacking meals for small companies as a dealer. So the companies we carried at the time were Heather's Choice, Peak Refuel. That was back when both of those companies were a little smaller. They hadn't gotten into REI yet. So we wanted to have a niche where we were just a dealer with really good quality food. And we actually did two ideas at once. We had the food dealership, I guess, through an online store, but we also sold a subscription box, and that most people don't realize that and that's because it flopped terribly. We sold that it was a 10-month project, and it was losing money every month, and we finally axed that and decided let's just focus on our food store. So our best month, we might have sold 9 subscriptions. It was just a dismal failure, but through that we made good connections with folks, some of these brands for giveaways and certain things. So that was the start of the business. Was just a year and a half of our online food store. And fast forward to summer of 2020, everyone remembers that year pretty well. And I had been frustrated at my job. I had been talking with my boss and saying I'd like to move on, and they understood, and it was a mutual agreement. I just needed to find a position and wasn't able to find one, so I kept staying there, and I had trained my replacement and everything. I was ready to move on. And then COVID hit, and our military contracts were stable, but a lot of the other medical and industrial laser contracts we had fell away. So they laid off multiple people from the business, and I was one that got let go. So that was July 3rd, 2020. And at that point, I had the heart to heart with my wife saying, what do we do now? I've been looking for a different position for a few years. We've got this little side business that's really small. And my wife said, if you don't try and grow that business, you're going to regret it. You've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So we decided in order to scale the business and eventually make a living from it, we would need to make our own food products. So we had a little bit of a severance package from the company. So we just dug in and made 4 recipes of backpacking breakfast, something that we thought filled a niche that we could get off the ground quickly. And so that was the push, 4 months of that. And then in October 2020, we launched our own brand. We'd been set up as a food manufacturer, done all the licensing, got an inspection at a rented kitchen, so on and so forth. So it was just a big push to get the new products off the ground. And now 2.5 years past that, and we've got 6 flavors, and we're building our own commercial kitchen so we can expand, and things are going in the right direction. So it's been a interesting journey here the last several years.
So that must mean then that I found you guys in about February of 2021, and yes. I probably from that time on, I have been taking your breakfasts on every single backpacking trip that I go on. I didn't realize, I guess, that it had only been that long and that we found you that quickly after launch. But so just to kind of go backwards just a little bit. So when you were selling the food, I mean, you got started with these breakfast meals. Is that primarily just because you saw the opportunity there? Like you didn't have to have maybe freeze dryer, some of those types of things, or were you still freeze drying product, or was there some level of like even just opportunistic approach to that, or?
It's a lot. Yeah, several things. One, what is the product that we can get off the ground the quickest, which was something that didn't require freeze drying, like investing in freeze drying equipment. So we were renting commercial kitchen space locally, and they had convection ovens, and we wanted to make something that we could make quickly that was scalable. So with my background in manufacturing, I wanted something that's simple and scalable, and kind of we had a list of all the boxes that we wanted to check. And so part of it's me being a nerdy engineer background. We didn't, after talking with a few folks about freeze drying and just understanding that process, it didn't seem like there was a viable freeze dryer that we could use to scale up. It seems like there's entry level machines that you can buy at Home Depot, and then massive equipment that's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of $1,000s. So there wasn't a happy medium that we could find. And once you introduce meat into the equation, you get the FDA involved for inspections. It's everyone we talked to said, whatever you do, don't put meat in your product. That just opens a big can of worms. So we kept it super simple, something that we could get tested with folks immediately, get the labels designed and approved by the state, and out the door. So we went from, oh crap, what just happened? I'm laid off, to launching food products with UPC labels available for wholesale within 4 months. So we just put everything we had into getting that product line off the ground as quick as possible. So I don't know if that answers your question,
Yeah.
but we wanted to stay away from freeze drying just for the simplicity's sake and the cost sake. And we also felt there was a big need in in the breakfast market. It seems most brands have a few breakfasts, and they're developed kind of as an afterthought. So we thought we could be different in that field.
Yeah, I think that's kind of my next question really is just like, what does it take to build a backpacking meal? Like, where did your ideas come from as far as like what you wanted to build and why you wanted to build that?
Great question. We'd had brands that we've sold through our online store where they had a similar maybe granola meal that you could add hot or cold water to. And that was a revelation for me to know that, oh, I don't have to bring along just instant oatmeal where you can only add hot water. It doesn't reconstitute with cold. So a product that I could do either was fascinating. And we thought, well, there's a lot of granola meals on the market with Mountain House, Peak Refuel, Backpackers Pantry. There's a lot of people that do granola, but they're mainly carbs and sugar. So what can we do to make an endurance type breakfast that will work and give you hours of sustained energy? So the ease and simplicity, as well as trying to optimize the macros for people that are relying on these meals day in and day out. So we just went through and developed our checklist and started trying to tailor the meals to be as versatile as we could.
Yeah, it just seems like you're very systematic in all of these approaches, which is really good, right? Because from my experience with running a business and talking with a lot of business owners, when you get too emotional, especially too emotional too quickly, right? Everything can just start flying, can go out the wrong way, right? Because at the end of the day, you have to be profitable. You have to, have a repeatable system, and so on and so forth. But I think that's kind of the biggest thing that attracted me and really the rest of the Outdoor Vitals team to Alpen Fuel meals was, one, they're like 5 ounces on average per meal. But let me pull it up here. You're looking at like a 5-ounce meal that you can add cold water to, and you're getting 700 calories. Some are in the 600s, I think, but my favorite one is the caramel apple flavor, and getting 700 plus calories. And while I'm at my own house, at home or on a regular basis, I skip breakfast a lot. Like I'll go do my morning workout and I'll have like a protein shake, and then I'll just go to lunch. But when you're out on trail, especially the way that we end up on trail a lot, which is logging big miles, 20 to 25 mile days and whatnot, being able to get up and instantly get food into your body before you start going has been a big factor in that, because really when you're logging that many miles in a day, especially in rough terrain or high country, it's just getting as much calorie into your body as possible is a really important thing, right? Because you're never gonna be able to eat as much as you are burning in those scenarios. And so starting off the day with calories just really seems to be a massive benefit. But if I'm starting off the day with just like, those 50-cent baggies of oatmeal, or if I'm starting off the day with, just a random, like just a bar, it's just not enough sustenance, in my opinion, and for me, to get the day started off right.
Absolutely. And I'm not giving my wife enough credit here. I've been saying we here and there, but really, I had in mind a breakfast that checked some of these boxes as a backpacker, hunter, something that you can do with the cold to hot water, something that's a meal bag that's short enough that you don't get your hands messy when you're eating it. I had in mind what the product should look like and those check boxes, but my wife really I had maybe a few ideas of let's do this granola or that granola flavor, but my wife, our top 3 selling flavors have all been her developments from scratch. Like even the flavors that I came up with, she would say, no, it needs to pair with this, or we need to add this spice or do that, or let's tweak the brown sugar or whatever. So she brought them up magnitudes from where they were. So that's all my wife that did all that. The caramel apple she came up with in a weekend, which is our best selling flavor by 2x. Like we had made all of the other flavors, and at that point we'd made thousands of pouches, so we knew kind of how to make granola at that point. But that final flavor came from her just riffing on what we had in the past. So it's definitely been a collaboration between myself and her. But anyway,
she's done a phenomenal job, because the flavors, I've liked all of them. Especially like that caramel apple one is just so dang good. Every once in a while you just get a bite that's just like, seems like it's a lot of caramel and a lot of apple, and it's really, really good. But you have some really unique flavors as well, which I may have to have you run through those at some point, but I will post show. But yeah, I mean, just super, super good. So kudos to her on what she's put together. The other thing that I just have to give you guys kudos for is you made a backpacking meal that you actually have to add water to, and the packaging isn't 4 times bigger than it needs to be. Like, yeah. It drives me nuts. I mean, we sell a lot of Peak Refuel. We do rep Mountain House, and we have, and then we're always kind of on the lookout for other things. But packaging is huge. And even when you talk to some of these companies about it, like the answer they pretty much give you is like, it's for branding, not for performance, They
just want more shelf space, maybe?
Basically. Yeah, basically. They're like, well, how can we get all the messaging we want on a smaller bag? And I'm like, I don't care. When I'm on a trip and I look around at my employees and the people we're backpacking with, and they've repackaged your meals into Ziplocs because your stinking bags are so huge, that's a problem. Anyways, so I really appreciate that your meals and your sizes are adequate. They're not too big. And it just drives me nuts, because I know you have to add a little bit of water and you have to be able to mix it. But even then, most of these guys could cut their packaging in half and it would still be adequate for function. But so I got to give you just some kudos on that. As far as like the calories itself, right? Because like you look at oatmeal, you look at just like your typical granolas and stuff. How are you guys managing to get so many calories in a 5-ounce packet? Is that from adding fats, right?
Yes. It's magic, really. No, thanks for touching on the small size. We really wanted to emphasize that. And people, when they walk up to our booth, they say like, I didn't realize these were so small, and you can fold them in half and jam them in your backpack and they take up no room at all. So I'm glad that that people are noticing that.
I just got to say too, I picked the wrong day to do this podcast, because I've been calorie counting and trying to cut some holiday weight, and I've been doing like a once a week like fast, And that happened to be today. And I
Oh no.
am so dang hungry just talking about these meals.
So
So,
the,
anyways,
the calories, we talked with someone I met years ago who is a friend. I met him at a just a hunting get together and didn't know who he was at the time. Took his card and then years later got back in touch with him and said, "Hey, remember me? He's a nutrition coach for endurance athletes, and so he's coaching cyclists and ultra runners." And I sat down with him and said, "We're trying to make what we were looking at a meal bar at the time before we got into the granola. We were just throwing ideas out there." And I said, "What type of macro breakout should I have? Fat, protein, and carbs." So for an endurance type hiking athlete, like a through hiker who's doing 20 plus miles a day, or a hunter who's burning 4 to 6,000 calories and climbing a bunch of vertical, like the nutrition requirements are way different for that individual than even someone running a 20K or something where they just need as many carbs as possible. They're done in a matter of hours or minutes and the race is over. With folks out in the field all day, they're more of a sustained energy crowd, so the fat and the protein become very important. And so we weren't able to hit his targets exactly, but we definitely did our best. And so that breakout just means a lot more fat and a lot more protein. So when you're looking at calories per gram, with carbs you get 5 calories per gram, with protein you get 5 calories per gram, and with fat you get 9 calories per gram. So the obvious mathematical answer to boost calories is put as much fat in there as possible. So we use a lot of nuts. So the other brands that, with their granola being more carbs and sugar, they're using oats and freeze dried fruit and some type of sweetener, but pretty much none of them are using nuts. And the reason they don't probably is, one, they're expensive, and two, they shorten the shelf life on the meal. And that was trade-offs we were willing to make. We thought, well, if we're shortening the shelf life but improving the nutrition and the calories, that's going to be a win for us and our customers. So we get fat from coconut oil and from nuts, and we use all natural sweeteners like maple syrup and honey. So we end up with a meal like our chocolate strawberry is our highest calorie meal at 760. And most people, when they flip that package over, their eyes bug out because they've never seen a breakfast like that before. So
yeah.
we're able to get energy content, where one of the guides that I talked to last week at the show, he's around 200 plus pounds. And he says, I eat one of your meals in the morning and then I'm good till lunch. So that's a huge testament for us. Just a meal that gives you 3 to 4 hours of energy is wonderful. And that was what we had in mind.
Yeah. I mean, I think you really do have a phenomenal breakdown there. And I think you're spot on, right? Like if I was going to get up and go trail running, this probably wouldn't be the meal that I eat. You're just looking for quick sugars, quick carbs. But if I'm going to get up and hike all day long, it definitely is the meal, right? Like you're breaking down your muscles. So you've got protein in there. You have even a lot of sodium in a lot of these. You've got, and then you've got the fats. And I actually was just listening to something this morning that was talking about what you eat right before exercise can dictate what your body decides to burn as fuel during exercise. So hypothetically, if I got up and ate a bunch of carbs and then I went and exercised, my body will say, I have an abundance of carbohydrates, let's burn those. Or if I got up and ate fats, my body would say, I've got an abundance of fats, let's burn those, right? And so it's kind of an interesting concept, just going back to what you did build, because I do think it is the right macronutrients. It's the right build for hiking all day long, or just putting in bigger miles or bigger vertical climbing. And it's a great way, because like you can get up and you can just start hiking, which is what a lot of people do. But the reason that I try my best, at least, to have a meal, sometimes I'll start hiking, but within 1 hour, I'll stop and have breakfast on the trail. That's actually one of my favorite ways of doing it, right? If you're logging a 20-mile day, getting even a couple miles in and then stopping for breakfast and having these more frequent stops. I say frequent stops, but hiking 2 hours with a break, 2 hours with a break, 2 hours with a break makes a 20-mile day feel a lot less like you just hiked for 6 hours straight. And so a lot of times we'll get up, pack up camp, hike for 45 minutes, maybe 60 minutes, stop and eat one of these. But it allows you to not be hiking at a massive deficit compared to if I just got up, ate a bar, and then, went until I was hungry, maybe had another bar, and then went till lunch. You're already creating a deficit early in the day of calories and nutrients that then you have to combat all day. And then hopefully when you go to sleep, your body can reset all that. But anyways, that's been a big part of what I see is like, one, just getting those calories in, but two, I think there is a big advantage for the breakdown that you guys have built.
And one other comment that I will make, there are a few breakfasts out there that are super high calorie. One, like a lot of the maybe biscuits and gravy might be higher in calories. There's some fat
those
in
are
there.
dinners. What are you talking about?
No, the point I wanted to make is with ours, we use a cup of granola and then all the pouches have powdered milk in them. So what you have is a meal that everybody, it seems, can tolerate some type of breakfast cereal or oatmeal without stomach distress. But if you're hiking or hunting a 4,000 foot climb that you have with lots of switchbacks, if you eat one of our meals, it sits light in your stomach and gives you sustained energy. And it's with the biscuits and gravy, something like that is maybe 3 times the volume in your stomach, and you may be paying for it down the road. So our meals are approachable and they don't cause a lot of stomach issues.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to that. Like I can't handle eating I couldn't handle eating like a biscuits and gravy or something like that right out of the gate in the morning. I just wouldn't be able to get it down personally. Usually your meals are about the limit. Like that's about as much as I can eat early on in the morning. And so it's been the right, makeup for me, but yeah, there's no way I could put down like 1,000 calorie biscuits and gravy or even just considering like the breakfast scrambles, right? I don't know. I haven't looked at the breakdown of those, but I've been some of the least favorite meals that I've had from any manufacturer, even like Peak Refuel, who's like my preferred entree. I mean, they're just, everything they have is so good. I've never been able to eat those. They don't sit well in my stomach. So yeah, it just doesn't work for me.
Eggs don't have a lot of calories either, so you get a tremendous amount of volume they're about 650 calories, I think, per pouch. But again, the volume's high.
Yeah, that might be the only one too that you add like a lot more water to, almost 2 cups or something. Whereas in some of the other ones, it's not quite that much water. So it is just a lot of volume. That's an interesting way to look at it. It's just the volume that you have to get into your stomach and then start moving with, right? Yeah, super, super, super interesting stuff. And I think people should definitely pay attention to all of this, right? Like fueling on the trail is such a massive part of what's going to make you feel good, what's going to keep you going day after day, what's going to make you, hypothetically not get off trail or come back early or anything like that by taking care of all these things early on instead of getting behind and then struggling and then starting to tap out of your trip early. But
yes, and a lot of people may not think about the value in it, or even we've had many people come up, especially at shows. They'll say, "Oh, so you guys just make granola or just make breakfast?" And we say, "No, it's not just granola. This is markedly different in every way from everything that's on the market." You have picked up and appreciate on a lot of the nuances on what we're trying to do, but a lot of folks that may go over their head, and but our meals aren't for every single person out there. Some, we're going after folks that can appreciate the high calories and the good macros, and folks that really want to dial in their food prep.
Yeah, I mean, one. So I've got to think here just a little bit just about like what the listeners need to take away from some of this stuff, right? How does this really apply to them? One, good nutrients and things, but also just from like we talked a little bit about packaging and stuff. Another thing for me though is just I don't have to cook your meal. In fact, I don't know if I was just thinking about that. I'm like, I don't know if I've ever actually put warm or hot water into one of your meals. I just use basically half a cup of cold water and it's good, right? But so I think that's one pickup, is just that it's super easy to make these on the trail. But how in your, I guess, is there other things that people listening to this podcast, or that you, through your seat at a backpacking food company, other things, other misses you see consumers making with nutrition on trail, other things to note or to pay attention to?
That's a great question. I think people don't. It's hard to get enough calories for most people. I know I'm that way. When you're burning such a tremendous amount of calories, maybe you're at elevation, a lot of times you just don't feel like eating. And so when you do eat, you really need good high octane stuff in your stomach. And so I think if you're using subpar nutrition and you don't feel like eating, you're even that much farther behind the game. So that's, some folks make that mistake for sure. And like you said, if you don't feel like eating in the morning and you get down the trail, then you're behind the game too. So a meal, with our meals, like you said, you can use them hot or cold water. The taste, I think, is just a little bit amplified when you use the hot water, but they're all delicious cold. So that's the other thing that this is maybe not completely answering your question, but the taste of our meals, I feel, I'm obviously biased, but I feel like it's superior. We were just because of the ingredients, and again, my wife knowing how to tweak things and really put it together. So with our caramel apple, that's our best seller. We sell 2 times more of that meal than any of our other flavors. But our second place meal is lemon berry made with honey and raspberries and blueberries, and that one was awarded Backpacker Magazine's best breakfast of 2022. So we just have a really great slate of meals, and they're all the taste on all of them is unique from one another, so you don't really get tired of them on a long journey.
Yeah. And just to attest to that too, one of our team members who's, I don't call him a small fry, but he's a little bit smaller than my size. He'll eat your Alpen Fuel meals as like a lunch or something like that, because they're big enough for him to really be a full, any meal of the day, or even a dinner. I've seen him eat them a lot at dinner time, just because it's plenty of food and calories for him for dinner. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing. But so for you, Shaun, when you're getting outside, what are you typically doing? I know that you're a sportsman, but are you backpacking much? Are you logging like big mile days? Are you going fishing? Like, what's kind of your favorite way to get outside?
That's a great question. I grew up in Helena, I guess, in Montana. So I grew up hunting, fishing, and backpacking. I started backpacking when I was around 15. And so that's been kind of the mainstay for me, and what the activity I enjoy the most, probably, and tying that in with fishing as well. But I try and do at least a couple, if I can, longer trips in the Beartooth Mountains here in Montana. So I'll do a big loop and just try and hit as many lakes as I can for fly fishing for golden trout, cutthroats, and brook trout. So I do a lot of that, and then some backpack hunting in the fall for mule deer, and then just camping with my family. I've got a wife and 2 kids, and we all enjoy getting out, taking the dog in the camper, and just finding a small stream that we can camp by and fish. So I dabble in a lot of things. I guess I do some backcountry skiing, and just any way I can to get outside and kind of recharge is what I try and do.
Yeah. When you're going out on maybe some of your more strenuous adventures, so that's like a backpack hunt or maybe these loops in the Sawtooth Mountains, or Beartooth or Sawtooth. I think I just switched that. What does a day full of food look like to you? Like, just walk us through what that might be.
Yeah, this is always a fascinating question. Good question. For breakfast, obviously one of our meals with a cup of instant coffee and maybe a little bit of dried mangoes. And that's
gotta have the dried mangoes.
And then
those are all day long. You got to keep those like in fresh supply all day long.
I don't think I carry any other dried fruit. It's just the mangoes for me, and I don't really eat them any other time. It's just when I'm backpacking. And then I have like a quart Ziploc bag that's just full of random stuff. So my lunch is always snacking. I don't sit down and prepare lunch. It's if I'm hiking, I eat on the trail. If I'm fishing, I eat while I'm fishing so I can fish more. So I never do a cooked breakfast or lunch. It's peanut M&Ms, jerky, more mangoes. I like Belvita breakfast bars or some type of granola bar or pro bar. All that jammed into a bag that I eat throughout the day. And then for dinner, I do Peak Refuel for like their chicken pesto pasta. I really like their beef marinara. And like those are 900 calorie plus meals. So I love those. And then there's a few other small brands that I carry. Bushka's Kitchen is one. They're from San Francisco. They have a lot of unique meals. And yeah, that's the main thing for me. And sometimes I carry a few bites of like nice premium chocolate to eat before I go to bed. But
that's what I was just gonna ask. Is like, what's your like unhealthy dessert after dinner? You know, it seems like that's at least around here. It's like that's our one thing is we finish like it's like everyone gets out their food, right, and you're all looking around like, oh yeah, that one's good, and then after it's like, okay, what's the dessert that you have that you've packed?
Dark chocolate.
Oh, go ahead.
Dark chocolate for me.
That's a good one for sure. Do you have any, you kind of mentioned this earlier, just talking about going into high elevation and sometimes losing your appetite. Do you know anything about like why that is, or, you know, have you dealt with that very much yourself?
I guess the reasoning behind it or the science behind it, I'm not fully versed on that, but I don't know, just the exertion and whatnot. I have experienced it. I guess I've had altitude sickness back in high school, hiking at 10 or 11,000 feet, which is high for Montana, maybe not for Colorado, but I've experienced it a few times and generally it's gone away. But I guess my ability to, I'm better about one, making sure that I eat even if I'm not hungry and just eating better quality food as well. So I don't encounter it as much today as I did say 5 years ago. But how about you? Do you have any insight into what's going on there?
Well, to me, like for instance, this last year when we did the Uinta Highline Trail, so it's 110 miles through the Uinta mountain range here in Utah. It's a ton of elevation, right? You're just at elevation the whole time, and then you're doing different exertions. And on the morning of day 3, I started to kind of feel like not like I didn't really want to eat, and then it kind of stayed with me through a lot of the remainder of it. And yeah, the best for my and this is kind of not an isolated event, but it's the best one to talk through, I guess. You know, it definitely seems to be. I mean, obviously, if you are actively getting elevation sickness, I think that directly links into sometimes messing up your GI or just developing GI problems. But for this one, it just felt like it was like related to exertion. The night before, we had logged a really hard day because we had started off slow. We had a change in our group, and so then we were going faster to try to log the miles, and then we ended up sleeping where there wasn't water. There actually was water if I just didn't know it was there until the next morning, and so I didn't get as hydrated that night. I really focus heavily on hydration at altitude. Like that's my number one thing. It's just I think that's the fastest and quickest link to getting elevation sickness every time. And so I think I got a hair behind on water. Not bad though. And then yeah, throughout that day it got a little worse, and it just really felt like anytime we were doing high exertion, so when we were actively climbing, I'd get really sick to my stomach. We'd get on flat ground, I'd feel just fine. And then at meal times, I was struggling at times to just get food down or to have anything that looked tasty. But I also found that in those moments, I really crave items with a lot of fat in them. So I'll pack mayonnaise packets. And for some reason, anything like if I had like a little bit of like a piece of sausage or something like that, and then I can have mayonnaise on it or cheese with that. Like that is, in fact, one of my team members here, they basically gave me it was like a small tortilla with a little bit of cheese, sausage, and some mayonnaise on it. And I probably would have paid them $50 for just this little tiny thing, because it just sounded so good to me. So there's something, I don't know. So I guess my takeaway from that was just like, no, the more experience you have, the more you know what to pack. And it was really dumb of me, because I had learned that lesson before, and that my body craves those things in these situations. And I had rushed my food prep and gotten just too lazy with it. And so then I didn't pack any of those things. But it is really interesting to me that your body starts to crave certain things, and those are kind of the only things that help curb it at elevation. But I don't know. It's a very interesting situation. I think it might be different for different people, which is why you can't find hard and fast information out there about it.
Right. And I think some folks try and get tricky. They'll buy meals that they haven't tried before, or they'll buy a keto meal when they're carb heavy at home, and they'll totally switch it up, or vice versa, So it's important to eat maybe things that you're familiar with or that you've tried. And then obviously like you said, the water, I'd forgotten about that, but that's a huge, great recommendation.
Yeah. Yeah. I've gotten to the point now where if we're bringing anyone newer to altitude, I'm just the most badgery person you can probably imagine, because I've just seen it ruin their trips, but sometimes it derails the whole group, because they don't realize that they're drying out. It's always windy up there, so it's blowing any sweat accumulation off of them. It's oftentimes really sunny, and so they just have no idea that they're drying out at the rate that they are. And then once you start to get dehydrated, it starts elevating your heart rate and all these different factors. But yeah, no, I was just interested. I'm fascinated with going to high elevation, so I feel like I have to dig whenever I find someone who might have any information regarding it. Well, I think we've covered a lot here. I did want to touch on too, just what you guys are doing with conservation. You guys obviously are Montana born, just basically born and raised outdoors. So what role does conservation play in your business?
Yes, and thank you for asking. We actually joined up with 2% for conservation before we'd even sold a single product back in 2019. So we thought, well, my wife's from Wyoming, I'm from Montana. We've taken a lot of these opportunities for granted, and I saw that when I would go to other states or big cities, maybe for work, and just realize maybe how good we have it here. So it was a mission of ours from the beginning. My wife and I both agreed, let's give back part of our sales to conservation. So we partnered with 2% for conservation, and their director actually lives not too far from Bozeman, but a lot of larger hunting brands are a part of this organization. Sitka is, there's Stone Glacier Packs, et cetera. So we give back 1% of our sales and 1% of our time every year. So that's obviously a donation back to conservation organizations. We chose Rocky Mountain Goat Alliance last year, so Mountain Goat Conservation. So we give back, kickback as far as our profits go, but then with our volunteering, what that 1% of our time means is about 2 to 3 days of volunteering for a brand of our size. And this last year, my daughter, who was 8 at the time, we went backpacking for 2 days on a mountain goat survey with the Goat Alliance. And so she's 8 years old. We packed in 5.5 miles. She was a trooper. We got way back in there and we surveyed mountain goats at 10,000 feet right above our camp. And it was just a wonderful experience. So we're helping local biologists and hunters and conservation groups in that manner. So this year, going forward, we'll volunteer hopefully with them again, and we give back to just anything that's related to wildlife conservation or public land advocacy is who we support.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. I didn't realize that with 2% for conservation, it was the 1% of revenue and 1% of time. That's a really interesting breakdown, and it's really needed, right? I mean, just writing checks is not always the answer, right?
Yes, we enjoy I volunteered with the Goat Alliance for 3 years now on goat surveys, and I did like trail maintenance as a volunteer before that, which was great. I enjoyed that, but just being out and we get a chance to give our meals out to everyone that participates in these surveys. So there's a little bit of brand advocacy for us, but it's just a great time. My daughter talks about that event all the time. Like, it really made an impression on her, and it was her first actual backpacking trip. Everything fell through before that, so for us to get out, it was really special for us.
Yeah, that's really, really, really cool and admirable too. So I guess just know, if you guys are supporting Alpen Fuel, you're also supporting, conservation and of goats, which is they need a lot of conservation. Those and sheep, they really need some help sometimes. So,
Yeah,
all right. So let me finish off this, Shaun, with is there anything coming next for Alpen Fuel? I think you've got 6 flavors right now, correct?
correct.
How are you guys looking to grow? Are you looking to grow? Are you expanding in any way?
Yes, we're right in the middle of it right now. So, like you said, 6 flavors of backpacking meals. At this time, I alluded to this before, but we're not moving into entrees or freeze dried or dinners or anything of that sort. A year ago, we started looking into a new commercial kitchen space, and so we last summer signed a lease on a 5-year lease on a new building that was being built. It was supposed to finish in October, but due to supply chain problems, it's been delayed over and over again. We're hoping to get into the new building in March of this year, so 1 more month from now, and that will be a 2,300 square foot manufacturing facility, warehousing, office space, all the above. So we'll take our operation from being an office in my bedroom and shipping out of our garage and renting a kitchen space to an all-in-one facility. So that's super exciting. We're basically moved in. We're just waiting on an electrical panel that's refusing to show up. So that's the plan there, to get into that facility. And once we're in that, we are working on a snack lineup that's like a bite-sized energy cookie with some of the same endurance nutrition that we have in our meals, but as a gluten-free cookie that's really durable for your backpack. So look for that. We need to purchase.
Durable as in it's not just going to like crumble and fall apart in the packaging? Is that what you mean by durable?
Correct. Yes.
Wow.
We worked really hard on that. My she's been the lead on that project, and we've played around with different recipes and designs, and we tested it at the hunting expo here last week. Really good reviews. And yes, we've had folks use them in snow machines, rattling around in sub-zero temperatures. So you can eat them without breaking your teeth when it's cold out, and they hold up surprisingly well. So we're super excited to bring those to market. We just need we're trying to get the equipment to make them in scale, because we just can't hand scoop them. It's not feasible. So look for those hopefully this summer coming down the pipeline.
Okay. Well, I'm excited for that for sure. I've really loved all of the products you guys produce to this point, and I'm definitely excited to try these this next lineup here. So I'm always interested in more snack options. So
yes,
yeah, that's what it's all about really out there. The food, I mean, like, it's such a delicate balance when you're like an ultralight backpacker and whatnot, because you're trying to count those ounces, get the highest calorie per ounce or whatnot. But at the same time, food can make or break a trip, right? It really can. And so having stuff you really enjoy out there is critical, right? Even just the, I took my little 5-year-old boy, is 6 now, out, but just having things like those peak refuel cookie bites, and just stuff like that. And just, I bring tons of fruit snacks, it's just stuff like that. I mean, it makes the trip for him, but at the same time, it can make a trip for me as well. I'm no different. I'm just a little older. So,
yes.
Anyway, really, really appreciate it. I'm a huge believer in your product, and I appreciate your time today. Shaun, I hope that everyone that's listening to this will go check out the product. I will give a little more insight on just where you can get it at outdoorvitals.com. And Shaun, thanks again for being here.
Awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time and look forward to having a good relationship with you guys going forward.
All right, there you have it. My conversation with Shaun Durkee of Alpen Fuel. Again, I fully stand behind this product. It is absolutely my favorite breakfast on the trail. I get big calories, I get the right calories, and it sets up my day for success. So if you want to get your hands on any Alpen Fuel, you can go over and join our Live Ultralight membership. And once you're in there, you'll be able to find all of their products on our website. Not only that, you get them at discounted prices with rebates back after purchase. So again, join the Live Ultralight membership. And if for those of you that don't know, we not only sell backpacking food inside there, we sell things like water filters and a handful of other items, and we will be growing that throughout this year. So go join the Live Ultralight membership. You cannot lose money with this program. $10 a month goes into an instant $10 in store credit, plus the 10% year-wide, site-wide discount, upgraded shipping. You can join our closed Facebook group and have conversations in there, limited edition gear, a whole plethora of things that you can get from joining the Live Ultralight membership. Also, just wanted to quickly point out the meals that are available from top to bottom here. The meals that they have. Let's see if I can read these. There's the caramel apple we've already talked about. They have I think it's a coconut mango, which is really good. The chocolate and strawberry, lemon berry, granola, cranberry white chocolate, and there's an orange one that I'm struggling to see the name of here. Orange pecan. That's right. That one's really, really good. All of these I have tried. All of them I have loved. My favorite is the caramel apple. I also really like the lemon berry and the strawberry chocolate. So go give those a shot. I think you'll really, really enjoy them. Okay, with that, if you guys have any questions or comments, drop them on the YouTube channel if you've got comments. And if you have questions, reach out to liveultralightpodcast@gmail.com. That'll get forwarded straight into one of our email addresses, which we can answer later on the podcast. If you've not yet rated this podcast, make sure you go and rate this podcast. It helps this podcast grow, helps us help more people get outside and get connected with the vital outdoors. Speaking of that, I hope that's what you're doing right now as you listen to this. If you're not, get out there and get connected with the vital outdoors. We all need it. And we'll see you guys in the next episode, hopefully out on the trail.